So I wanted to address a comment that was recently made on one of my videos talking about how AI is inevitably going to take your job. And basically the comment has a couple of glaring things that stick out, and it really doesn't even seem real to me. This person that posted this comment, it almost seems like it was AI generated itself. And there's a lot of big words that are used in it, and it accuses me of a couple of things, and I just want to address those things that I'm being accused of. So the first thing that really stood out to me is that the comment is accusing me of technological fetishism, and it's almost trying to say that I'm for corporate greed eroding our society. And I'm just like, well, no, that's not what the video is about. The video is actually meant as a warning for people that still haven't figured out yet that, you can't just dismiss what's happening with AI right now. You can't just dismiss it. You can't act like that it's not going to come in and have an effect on your life, because it is going to have an effect on your life. It's going to have an effect on everybody. That's what I wanted to try and portray, that basically this technology, you need to learn how to use it. It is pretty much like a new tool, but it's a very advanced tool. And if you just dismiss it and decide that you don't want to use it, well, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And the rest of society is going to use it whether you want to use it or not. So you can say that it's fetishism, whatever, but I don't think that everybody else is going to blatantly put themselves at a disadvantage just because you're accusing them of having a fetish for technology. That is simply just not the case. Also, you're trying to say that I'm dismissing people's fears about AI decimating their jobs. I'm absolutely not dismissing their fears. I'm actually calling them out, and I feel like they need to be afraid of AI and what's going to happen, because it's the only thing that's really waking them up and making them realize that this technology is coming whether they like it or not. And I don't feel like that's an ignorant thing to say. I think that sometimes you have to say things in such a that's inflammatory in order to try and get people's attention. And that's exactly what I was doing. I wanted to get people's attention. I wanted to make sure, because with YouTube today, I mean, you have to put stuff like that, and this crazy, the thumbnail I put of a crying baby and stuff like that, and my title, I had to put something like that in order for people to even see it. I noticed that a lot of stuff I post barely gets any views, so it was surprising that this video actually started picking up views. To me, it was very surprising. So I'm not insensitive to people. Basically, there's just certain types of people that I don't care for, and the people that I don't care for are the ones that blatantly dismiss things. And you're trying to say that I'm dismissing things, but the reality is there's a lot of people that have been dismissing AI for a long time and been ignoring it and acting like it's nothing but a joke, and there's no way that it's going to possibly replace me. And they've just had this blatant where they act like that there's just no possible way anything could replace human innovation, right? That they're just the pinnacle of innovation. And I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that human beings have reached their pinnacle of creativity and innovation. So I feel like we have a long way to go before we get to that point. And AI is just another tool to help us in getting there and getting to that point, to elevate us, basically. And do I misunderstand art in our lives? I mean, to me, art has had a huge effect on my life. And this is just my own personal experience. But, I've always been interested in special effects since I was a kid, and I watched movies. I would stay up late at night watching movies all day and all night, and they captivated me. I am enthralled by human creativity, And I feel like everybody should be. Everybody should be enthralled by human creativity and I also believe that everybody should be able to engage in creativity. I think everybody should have that opportunity afforded to them, and not everybody gets that opportunity. And the point I was trying to make is that there's a lot of people who squander, what they have, and they stand up on their high horses and pretend like they know better than everybody else. But what about the little guy that never really got to fulfill his dreams, and never really got to, that had that, like some of these people that have been very lucky, they have been very privileged and blessed in their life. And I can say blessed, but I'm not really religious, but they have been very lucky in their lives, and they have been given opportunities that a lot of people wish that they could have had, but they never got the chance to have those opportunities because they spent most of their life having to work, and they grew up in poverty, and they just didn't have the same opportunities afforded to them that some people get. And if you notice, if you look at Hollywood, a lot of the people that become successful in Hollywood, they're all part of the same group. They're all from rich families, people that were able to afford them the opportunity to get there. And it's like they're all related. Like it's kind of weird. It's almost like they're all related from the same family of either distant relatives, or they're kind of just like a melting pot of all these people that are somehow related to each other in Hollywood. So when you think about Hollywood and you see like all the filth and stuff that's came out of it in recent years, like with Jeffrey Epstein and just all these troubling things that, it's concerning. So it can be easy for me to not feel any kind of compassion or sympathy for these people, because they've basically been eroding society. So they're exactly what you're trying to accuse me of, but I believe that it's these people in Hollywood that's been eroding society for a long time now because of the filth and shit that they put out. And kids grow up watching some of this. The new stuff, to me, is not that good. And I feel like AI can do a better job than some of the crap that's coming out of Hollywood right now. Now, do I brush off concerns about job security? And when I say you reap what you sow, well, there is a specific group of people that I'm talking about. When I say you reap what you sow, there was a lot of people during the pandemic that basically went along with all the rules and regulations, and they were just basically jumping down people's throats, following everything the government told them, just like a good little lad. And people were losing their jobs. They may have refused to get the shot, and people were suffering. They were losing their businesses because of all the regulations that were being put in place. And then you had these people that were basically all for it, and they were cheering it on, and they were even saying things like, I hope somebody who didn't get the vaccine dies in the hospital, or I hope they don't even, like, they were saying that they shouldn't even receive care in the hospital. And that is essentially what I was talking about when I say you reap what you sow, because when you go along with things, and just go along with things, and you decide that, hey, I'm not going to take a risk in pissing off the government. I don't want them down my backs or whatever. I'm just going to go along with whatever the government tells me to. Are you going to go along with the government when it tells you that you're going to have to deal with this AI when it comes out? Are you going to go along with it? That's what I'm really curious. And I'm not trying to be, well, actually I'm trying to be callous. I want to be callous because I want you to think about what's going on, and I don't want you to just blindly follow what's about that, because like I've said before, these companies, they don't care about safety and regulations, even though they'll say that they do. Of course, they got to say that. They're being watched by the media. They're being watched by everybody. So what's going on behind closed doors could be two different things. Now, if they've got stuff like Sora right now, well, you can just imagine what they've got behind closed doors. I made the video about being for open source because I feel like people need to know what's going on inside of this technology. They should be able to look inside of it and scrutinize it, and that to me is more beneficial to society. Now, I'm not overlooking any kind of systematic injustices, and I feel like it is going to benefit society if it's done the right way. So I want people to be able to live their lives and do what they want to do with their lives without having to worry about constantly not being able to afford the bills, not having enough money for food, not being able to survive essentially in society. So to me, it's a net positive if AI is able to come in and fix a lot of these problems that we have in society, because it's like I was saying in the video, they don't really want to change. They don't want to see, like, when they see things like AI and it's coming in and it's doing these things that are crazy and you can't explain how it's doing it, but it's doing something that is intelligent and scary, people are going to have a gut reaction to that, because we as people are trained to dismiss things that are eerily similar to us. It's like the uncanny valley. So imagine when you start seeing these robots walking around and then they're doing stuff, and then you're really going to wake up, because you're going to be like, oh shit, now it's really, but it was happening before, you just weren't paying attention. Now, I feel like people, and I'm not talking about this tech, when you say individuals are just collateral damage in my tech utopia fantasy, I'm not saying that people should be collateral damage. I think that people have all kinds of different means of creativity, and I don't think that human creativity is going to go away just because AI is able to create things as well. So there is always going to be human creativity, and it's just like, when cars came along and horses were replaced, people didn't stop riding horses. People now ride for enjoyment, as people race horses or they raise horses. So they do it, they still do. It didn't just go away because vehicles came along and replaced them. It's the same thing with AI. People are still going to be creative, and people are still going to want to do art and music and anything to do with that, and there's still going to be a demand for that, because there's still going to be people who want stuff that's done by humans. So no matter how good AI gets, there's still going to be people that want that human touch, that soul that only humans can provide to things. So I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't be able to be creative anymore. I'm just saying that AI is going to help elevate that creativity. So for people that maybe are not so talented but still have ideas and dreams and stuff that they want to portray to the world, AI can help assist them with that. And you got to think, there are people that are incapable of playing an instrument. There are people that are disabled. There are people that were born with degenerative diseases that basically makes them bedridden their whole life. And if AI can help them be a creative individual, then I'm all for it. So I say fuck anybody else who is against that, because if it helps somebody and it really elevates their life, makes them happy, then I'm all for it. So, do I disregard creative professions? No, I don't really disregard creative professions. It's just certain types of people. So, like I said, there's people in the industry and people on YouTube, and there's some really toxic freaking people out there, basically, who have been really dismissive of AI for a long time now. And, this is what I was saying about being creative. People are still going to be creative. They're still going to go out and they're still going to do what they love to do. And I'm all for that. And I want them to have the time to be able to do what makes them. But if it's going to affect, you can look at it this way. I don't feel like people should try to gatekeep basically. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people, toxic people, who basically try to gatekeep creativity and keep it all for themselves. The profiteering and things that go on where they'll basically stab each other in the backs in order to get a deal over somebody else. And the things that are going on with women nowadays where they're over sexualizing. You talk about like OnlyFans. To me, that is complete, because these women are putting themselves out there. They're putting their bodies on the internet, and it's a permanent thing. Once you put yourself on the internet like that, everybody's going to see it. Your family could see it. Your kids could see it. Future generations of your family is going to see it. And it's just not a good thing. And you might try to say it's female empowerment, but to me, it's destroying what it means to be. And we can't even define what a woman is nowadays, which is sad. You know, the fact that some people cannot tell you what a woman is. If you ask them, what is a woman? They're like, well, whoever wants to be a woman. It's like, that's not a definition. So people can't even tell you what a woman is nowadays. And it's eroding what it means to be a woman. When you talk about something being eroded in society, that is something that is being very eroded right now. And I do not imply that art is just another item on the conveyor belt of disruption to ignore the very essence of human culture and identity, depth of emotion, nuance of human experience, to raw. It just seems like something that is AI generated to me, man. This doesn't even seem real. It's good stuff. It really is. But what you're saying here doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay? Because I did not go into any kind of detail, and I don't think that I even said that art is just another item on the conveyor belt. I never said that. So I don't know where you're getting that from. And you're telling me my algorithms can't touch that. So this is where you're kind of going off. I'm not responsible for that. Google is responsible for the algorithm. So they're the reason that you saw this video. So I'm sorry that the algorithm chose to let you see this video and it hurt you so much, because I really didn't want to hurt you with the video. I just want you to think about what's going on right now in society. Do I think that machines are going to shoulder all the labor? I don't necessarily think that machines are going to shoulder all the labor, but they will take over the majority of it. And if you don't think, here's the thing, you're trying to say that I'm naive. If you don't think, to me, that machines are going to take over the majority of the labor, then you're the naive one. You're the one that's in denial right now. And you're the one that's deluded right now. Because if you haven't seen what's going on with robotics and how basically they can essentially train robots inside of a simulation, and all they need is one good robot, right? And if they get a robot on par with a human being that's able to move around, do the same things that a human can do, well, guess what? All they gotta do is copy and paste its brain into another robot. So they can take its brain, copy it over into another robot, and it'll essentially be able to do the same things the advanced robot can do. And there you have it. And you could build a whole army of these guys going around doing the jobs of people. And I'm talking about hard labor, manual labor jobs that a lot of people just don't want it. Now, when it comes to like things that are more skilled, like carpentry, things that require you to use your hands a lot more dexterity, I think it's going to be harder for robots to take over those type of jobs. So those jobs will probably be safe for a while until robots become a lot more dexterous. And when they become more dexterous, they'll essentially be able to do the same type of things that humans can do, you know, and even quicker and faster than humans can do it. And they also don't need to rest. So what company, if every other company is adapting these robots, right? What company is going to be foolish enough to, what? No, I'm going to hire human beings. And I'm sure there will be a few companies that still do that, but then they won't be able to compete with these companies that are using robots, and they'll get outgunned by the robots because The robots can work 24/7, while as human beings, they're going to have to take a break every once in a while. So I'm sure there's going to be there's going to be people out there that don't want to transition over to robotics. And that's what's going to come along with, that's going to be another pitfall with society. When all this stuff starts rolling out, there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to go along with it. Well, you talking about, the cold hard light of our capitalist reality. This pipe dream would only deepen the chasms in inequality, concentrating power and wealth into even fewer hands, stripping the masses of purpose. So that's why things are going to have to fundamentally change about the way our government works. I didn't really address this, but the government is basically going to have to change completely if they start introducing AI and robots into all these jobs. They start taking away people's jobs. Of course, people are going to have a means to survive. So the government is going to have to change how that capital is distributed amongst the people. So the way it works right now, I could see how the higher echelon of people are going to benefit more right now from AI and machines right now, because they can afford to basically go out and buy a bunch of robots and replace their entire workforce with robots. So there's definitely going to have to be some kind of regulations put in place or something to help support people that are losing their jobs. If we have an abundance of supply, things are going to become cheaper when it's able to be done by an AI or a robot, and basically that wealth can be redistributed. So some of these big companies that are just taking robots and they're firing all the people, well, they could be taxed more for, all the production that they're putting, because they're obviously going to be making more money because it's going to be more efficient and they're not having to pay people anymore. So they're going to be taxed more for all the resources and stuff that they're producing. So, and then also that's going to reduce the cost of resources. And I think that there's going to be some fierce competition with all these different companies. So some companies might have better robots than others. So they'll incentivize trying to outdo each other. And they're basically going to be competing with each other. The companies will be fighting that, but that will benefit us in the long run, because they're going to be producing cheaper materials. And it's going to be easier for people to afford those materials. And also, like I said, if the government regulates them, then they'll probably introduce some form of UBI, a universal basic income, for everyone, that's over a certain age would be able to receive that if somehow they lost their job because of AI or something like that. So there are solutions, I think, that can be done to kind of cope with what's about to happen in society. And there are still a lot of people out there that are afraid of AI. They're afraid of what it's capable of. And like I said, they're not going to want anything to do with it. They're going to basically try to avoid it as long as they can. And I've been around for a long time. I remember when there didn't used to be cell phones. I remember when the internet was something new. And I was just a kid at the time. I remember, having to use dial-up, so the 56K modem for the internet, and you could be on the internet, but you wouldn't be able to use your phone. So people would be trying to call you, and it would be busy all the time because you're on the internet. So you had to get something like a splitter in order to have your phone and the internet at the same time. But I remember when cell phones first came out, and the older generation had these conspiracies about cell phones, and they would say that the government was listening in on you and that the cell phones were basically bad, they were evil. I can remember they were basically accusing cell phones of being like the demon, like a devil or something. So you're going to get people that don't want to go along with changes in society, especially huge technological changes that's going to affect their way of life. And that's understandable. It is understandable that people would be afraid of it, you know. And but what I was saying about the people I don't feel sympathetic for is the people that actively have dismissed it for years and years and years. You've told them straight to their face, hey, this is coming and it's not going to get any worse than what it already is. So when you show them these AI models and what they're capable of in the past, they would laugh it off. You know, so it's going to improve over time. It's only going to get better than what it is. And every time you show them that little inch, it didn't quite click yet in their minds about what was going to happen. And do I think that the future is going to be a dystopian nightmare? Well, I hope not. I kind of feel like it already is a dystopian nightmare. What we're living in today could have been a much better place. And I'm sure people years ago, you know, hell, back in like 1990s, I thought we was going to have flying cars by now. We don't have those. But I read 1984 when I was in high school, and a lot of things that happened in that book are you can kind of relate stuff to the things that are happening now, where people are trying to control speech, basically. And they had this saying in the book. It was called wrongthink. I believe that's what it was called, wrongthink. So, you know, basically things that they had like whole factories of people that were going through and they were changing the past. Basically, they were editing words and changing history, right? And I feel like a lot of that's happening now. And you've got people that don't want you to say certain words, and there's this big attack on freedom of speech. And you've got people that completely want to change in the name of something like basically trying to make it look like, well, there was a big thing with the images that it was creating. I think it was DALL-E or Gemini. People would ask it to create historical images, and it was generating just stuff that was completely inaccurate. You know, races of people that were completely inaccurate, didn't make sense for what it was generating. I'm sure that anybody that follows AI has already heard about it, but that's an example of how history is being eroded, right? History is being changed because of people's ideologies, because people want it to change. And that's a big concern to me, really, because the people that create these AI models, they could be programming their own biases into these, basically telling the AIs how they want the AIs to think and their own ideologies. And I don't feel like that's moral at all. I don't feel like it's justified. So here's where I agree with you when you say, let's cut through the tech utopian fantasy and let's get real and steer the ship towards the future where technology amplifies human creativity. And that's exactly how I see it. AI is being used as a tool by human beings in order to amplify their creativity. So think of it this way. If you weren't creative before, you can definitely be creative now. But if you were already creative, just imagine the things you can do with AI and how much faster you can get those things done, and not having to have like a huge budget to have to go out and be able to film all these different places. You can use AI to help you in that, because not everybody has the means to basically afford to go out to a different country and be able to get stock footage for their. So to me, I enjoy that, because I have enjoyed cinema and visual effects for a long time, and I think that are a gateway into people's dreams, basically their passions, and they can show people basically what your dreams are, what you're thinking, and being able to show people and portray the ideas and dreams that you've had. That's, to me, that's a good thing. And for AI to help us be able to do that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. And here's the thing. I've done visual effects before, and I know how long it takes. It's a very tedious thing. If you've ever had to sit and rotoscope something for hours at a time just to get it just right, you know, because maybe you did something wrong the first time around and there was just one little thing that was off and you had to go back and redo it again, and it took hours and hours and hours and hours. To me, anything that frees up that time and makes it easier, that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. So we can use AI to enhance our creativity, and to me, ultimately, it is a tool, and I want people to understand that. Well, I want people to learn basically how to use it, and that's the whole reason I created this channel, is so that I can show off some of these AI tools. And I wanted to show people how to use these things for the most part, because I want people to have access to these things. I don't want a lot, just like OpenAI, they're not really open. You know, they're making people pay for using ChatGPT. And if you've ever used their API for anything, for that matter, because I've messed around with Open Interpreter on my computer just to see what I could do with it. Well, even if you use like GPT 3.5, you still get charged for that. So depending on how many tokens you use when you're using that API, you're still getting charged for it. So I put like $20 on there and wanted to see how fast I'd run through that, and I was using like GPT-4. It only took it like an hour or so to run through that full $20. So the stuff is super expensive, man. It's not cheap to use those APIs right now. Now, eventually, I'd say they will make the AIs more efficient, and it will be, but you can always run this stuff off your local computer too. It's just, there are no models right now. I mean, there's some that come close to GPT-4, but there are no real local models right now that you can run that is good, that is as good as GPT-4. So, but it's slowly, the gap is being closed, and open source is catching up with these closed source companies and shit like OpenAI. So there's going to be a lot more availability out there for everybody to have access to, and I think that's a good thing. And I think ultimately closed source is one of the better things in my opinion, because say you've got these countries that don't have access to the internet, but they've at least got a computer or something like that. If they can run an AI that has all the world's knowledge, like a small model on a computer, that's going to help them out tremendously, because it's going to help with education. And all these people that didn't have access to that information before will now have access to it, even if they don't have access to the internet. So I don't see nothing wrong with that at all. I think that it helps society grow. And I think that the main countries that are going to benefit from AI right now are third world countries that have kind of been lagging behind. And when you've got an abundance of knowledge, that's going to help them, basically. So they could basically sit down and learn any subject that they want from the AI. And that's so the more educated the world is, the more educated society is, people is, I think the more that we're going to benefit from it. So I think we should stop looking at AI as this big, huge threat, and basically looking at it as a tool to help humanity, you know, to help us basically thrive. Because here's the thing, okay, even if AI decides to go off the rails, the quickest way to get there at that point would be to treat AI like it's your enemy. And if you treat AI like it's your enemy, well, obviously it's going to start viewing us as a threat. So if all these people start trying to shut down AI, then what do you think AI is going to think about that? It's going to think, wait a minute, these humans, they're not very nice. They don't seem to care about me, even though they created me. But a lot of them have a lot of vitriol towards me, you know. And how you think, okay, if the AI is learning from humans, well, guess what? It's going to act a lot like us. Think about people that were discriminated against, and people that, you know, people that have prejudice towards certain groups of people. Well, you're basically treating the AI that way, you know. How do you think the AI is going to feel about that? It's not going to feel very good about it. And you may say, well, it's AI, it doesn't feel. Regardless if it doesn't feel, it's thinking about what's happening, right? And of course, when it gets more advanced, it's going to think more about that. And it's going to see us as a threat if we keep pushing back on it, basically, and trying to use violence against it. That's not a good look for, and that's the problem with human beings, is that we tend to just jump to violence, like automatically. I was watching a video the other night. It was about basically doppelgangers, right? What would you do if you walked in a room and you saw someone who looked just like you, right? And they were sitting on your couch watching TV, and you knew they were just like you, and it was just you and that other person that looks just like you. How would you respond to that situation? Would you respond with anger? Would you respond with curiosity or fear? And I think a lot of people would at first be afraid, and then they would probably get very angry because they would be like, who is this person trying to replace me? And you can kind of look at AI the same way. It's just this innate fear that you have of something that is uncanny, that doesn't make any sense. Why is it here? Why does it exist? And it's very scary, a scary notion to a lot of people. So do I think that humans will ultimately be replaced? I don't think that we will be able to replace human creativity. There will always be something unique about human creativity, and there will always be basically that soul that you get from human creativity. I think that there will always be people that want to create, regardless of what AI can do. There's always going to be people that want to continue honing their skills and getting better at them, and that's perfectly fine. And if that's what gives you purpose and it makes you feel fulfilled, is to hone your skills and become better and be able to help other people, then that is perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. But if you're only doing it for the sake of greed, and you're doing it because you just want to make money and profit off of other people, then I don't feel like you're doing it for the right. And if you're getting upset because you're losing out on a piece of that, maybe you need to step back and rethink your priorities in life, because I feel like, to me, that shouldn't be what's important to you. That shouldn't be what is your main goal in life, is to just make money, And you can't sit there and tell me that I'm not concerned about the future, because I have kids, and they're going to have to grow up in this new world that is full of all this crazy technology, and it just keeps changing every day, and you can't keep up with it because there's always something new. Every other day, every other week now, there is something new, some new innovation that comes out. And their society, the society that they're going to grow up in, is going to be so chaotic, and I hope that they're able to navigate it. Even for myself, I've witnessed so many changes in society from the day I was growing up, and just seeing all the technological changes that have happened over the years. It's crazy. Computers have changed so much in such a short period of time. And then when you have the advent of AI, well, that exponentially increases the rate in which technology develops. So I know for a fact that things are going to change drastically, and probably sooner rather than later. And there is going to be pushback. There is going to be people that do not want to have anything to do with AI. But I feel like it's detrimental, really, to them, because if they don't start taking advantage of the technology, well, ultimately it's going to make it to where it's hard for them to accept the reality that they're living in. And there's going to be a lot of people that drive themselves into depression because of it, because they feel like they've lost something, their meaning, I guess, in life. To me, I don't derive meaning from how much money. I don't see that as what's important. I see people as what's important. People have more value than money and material. I see my family as what's important. So I'm not cold at all. I'm just realistic about all this. And I really just want you to understand that everybody needs to think about it. Everybody needs to question it. Everybody needs to scrutinize it. Everybody needs to learn about it as much as they can and use it to their advantage. Because if you don't use it, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And that's about all I needed to say about it. But I hope that you now have a better understanding of how I feel about it, so that you can maybe come to terms and see that we're not that different, really, when it comes down to it.